I was sitting in my therapist's office having a panic attack at 34 years old, hyperventilating into a paper bag because I just lost my job, my apartment, and my savings all in the same month, and my therapist asked me one simple question that shattered everything. When was the last time you did something just for you, not for someone else? And I couldn't answer. I literally couldn't think of a single thing, because I'd spent 15 years fixing everyone else's problems while my own life quietly fell apart. And the worst part was that not one of those people I'd sacrificed everything for had called to check on me when I hit rock bottom. Let me take you back to where this started. I grew up watching my mom enable my alcoholic father, watching her sacrifice her happiness trying to fix a man who didn't want to be fixed, and I swore I'd never be like her, but I became exactly like her, just with different people. I was always the friend people called in crisis, the one who'd drop everything to help, who'd give advice and money and time without hesitation. In my 20s, I dated a guy named Marcus who was working on his music career, which meant he worked part-time at a coffee shop while I paid all our bills. I made $45,000 a year as a social worker, stretched it to cover our rent, utilities, groceries, his recording studio time, his equipment, everything. For 3 years, I funded his dream while putting my own life on hold. I wanted to go to grad school but couldn't afford it because I was supporting him. When his music finally got some traction and he got a small record deal, he left me for a girl he met at a showcase. Just packed his stuff and said, "I need to be with someone who understands the industry." Like I hadn't been understanding for 3 years while paying his bills. After Marcus, I threw myself into helping others even more. Convinced myself that my purpose was to be needed. My best friend Rachel was going through a divorce. I let her move into my one-bedroom apartment, gave her my bed while I slept on the couch for 8 months, listened to her cry every night, helped her find a lawyer, loaned her $3,000 for the retainer. She got through the divorce, got a good settlement, moved into her own place, and slowly stopped calling. When I asked for the $3,000 back, she said she'd get it to me when she could. That was 4 years ago. Still haven't seen a dollar. My brother was struggling with debt. I co-signed a personal loan for him, $12,000, promised he'd make the payments. He made 3 payments, then stopped. Destroyed my credit. When I confronted him, he said I was being selfish, making it about money when he was struggling. My coworker was a single mom who kept missing work. I covered her shifts constantly. Stayed late, came in early, took on her projects, burned myself out, making sure she kept her job. When I needed someone to cover for me when my mom was in the hospital, she said she couldn't. She had plans. I kept giving and fixing and helping because I thought that's what good people do. Thought that if I just sacrificed enough, proved my worth through service, eventually someone would do the same for me. But they never did. They just kept taking until I had nothing left. The collapse happened fast. I'd been working at a nonprofit for 6 years, underpaid and overworked, making $48,000 doing the job of 3 people, skipping lunch to meet deadlines, working weekends. My boss knew I'd never say no, so she kept piling on more. When budget cuts came, and they had to eliminate positions, they fired me. Not the person who did half the work. Not the person who called in sick constantly. Me. The person who'd given everything. When I asked why, my boss said, "We need people with better boundaries who don't burn out." They fired me for caring too much, for being too reliable, for being exactly what they'd exploited for 6 years. Without my job, I couldn't afford my rent. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck because every spare dollar went to helping someone else. I had $800 in savings. Couldn't make rent. Had to break my lease, move out in 30 days. I called the people I'd helped, the people I'd given thousands of dollars to. Asked if anyone could help me, loan me money, let me crash with them temporarily. My friend Rachel, who'd lived with me for 8 months, said her place was too small. My brother, who I'd co-signed for, said he was broke. Marcus never responded. My coworker said she couldn't get involved in personal stuff. One by one, they all had reasons, excuses. I realized with horror that I'd built a life around people who saw me as a resource, not a person. I ended up moving back in with my mom at 34, sleeping in my childhood bedroom. No job, no money, no prospects, completely broken. That's when the panic attack started. That's when I finally went to therapy because I had to understand how I ended up here. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, didn't sugarcoat it. You've been using other people's problems to avoid dealing with your own. Fixing them made you feel valuable because you don't believe you have inherent worth. You think you have to earn love by being useful. So you've surrounded yourself with people who need you but don't actually care about you. It hurt hearing it, but it was true. Every relationship I had was built on me being the helper, the fixer, the giver. I'd never asked for anything back because asking felt selfish. I'd made myself indispensable to people who were perfectly capable of being dispensable to me. Dr. Martinez gave me homework. Told me to write down every time in the last year I'd done something purely for myself. I stared at that blank page for an hour and could only think of two things, both times I got my hair cut. I couldn't name a hobby, a passion, a dream that was mine. Everything was about serving others. I'd lost myself completely. She asked what I wanted. If I could have anything, what would I want from my life? I started crying because I genuinely didn't know. I didn't know who I was outside of being helpful. I was 34 years old and I'd never lived for myself, not even once. That realization was devastating but also clarifying. I made a decision that day. I was going to rebuild my life, but this time for me. I was going to be selfish, unapologetically selfish. I was going to fix myself first, and everyone else could figure out their own problems. I started small. Stopped answering calls from people who only contacted me when they needed something. My phone got quiet fast. Turns out most of my relationships were transactional. I felt guilty at first, but Dr. Martinez reminded me they'd abandoned me first. They just hadn't noticed because I kept giving anyway. I got a new job, not in social work. I couldn't do it anymore. Got a job in corporate HR, making $62,000. Better pay, clear boundaries. I started saying no. To overtime, to extra projects, to people who wanted me to go above and beyond. I did my job well, but I didn't sacrifice myself for it. I moved into my own studio apartment. Small but mine. I didn't tell most people my address because I didn't want drop-ins. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, bought things for myself without guilt, started living like my comfort mattered. I started therapy twice a week, invested in myself, worked through why I'd spent my life proving my worth through service, unpacked childhood trauma. I'd been ignoring, learned that my dad's alcoholism and my mom's enabling had taught me that love was conditional, that you had to earn it through sacrifice. 6 months into my healing, I ran into Rachel. She saw me and smiled like nothing had happened. "Oh my God, I've been meaning to call you. I'm going through some stuff with a guy and I need advice." Without hesitation, I said, "I'm not available for that anymore. I hope you figure it out." I walked away. Her face was shocked. She called after me. "What's wrong with you? You've changed." I turned back and said, "You're right, I have changed. I used to think being there for everyone made me good. Now I know it just made me empty." My brother called months later, needed money again. I said no without explanation. He got angry, said I was being cold, that family helps family. I laughed. Family helps family? Where were you when I lost my job and my apartment? When I needed help, you were broke. Now you're asking me for money again. The answer is no, and it'll always be no. He called me selfish and hung up. I didn't feel bad. I felt free. One by one, I cut out the takers, the users, the people who only valued me for what I could do. My social circle shrank dramatically, but the people who remained actually cared, actually checked on me, actually showed up reciprocally. A year later, my life looked completely different. I'd been promoted at work, making $75,000. I'd paid off the debt from co-signing my brother's loan. I started painting, something I'd loved as a kid but abandoned because it seemed selfish. I was actually good at it. Started selling pieces online. It became mine. Something I did for joy, not obligation. I started dating differently too. Not looking for projects to fix, but partners who were whole. I met someone who had his life together. Who didn't need me to save him. Who wanted me, not needed me. He asked what I needed, what I wanted, how he could support me. I cried the first time because nobody had ever asked me that. I'm 37 now. I have boundaries. I have hobbies. I have savings. I have a life that's mine. I still help people, but selectively, intentionally, only when I have capacity and only when it's reciprocal. I don't set myself on fire to keep others warm anymore. Here's what I learned the hard way. You cannot fix people who don't want to be fixed. You cannot sacrifice yourself into being valued. Trying to fix everyone else while ignoring yourself doesn't make you noble, it makes you a martyr. And martyrs don't get rewarded, they get used up and forgotten. I tried to fix everyone. Should have fixed myself first. Should have built a life I loved before trying to support everyone else's. Should have learned that helping others is beautiful, but only when it comes from overflow, not from emptiness. If you enjoyed my story, please like and subscribe and share this with anyone who's always fixing others while falling apart themselves, because here's the truth. Put your oxygen mask on first. Build yourself up first. Fix your own foundation before trying to hold up everyone else's. You can't save anyone from drowning if you're drowning too. I tried to fix everyone. Learned I should have fixed myself first. And that lesson cost me years and thousands of dollars and my entire sense of self. But I'm grateful for it because it taught me the most important thing. Your worth isn't determined by how useful you are to others. It's inherent. You matter even when you're not helping, even when you're not needed, even when you're just existing and taking up space. And once you believe that, everything changes.